time for some more typography experiments. I've got a handful of experiments and ideas that I want to try out, so I'm just going to bring you along for the ride. As always, I have no idea what we're going to get on the other side of these experiments or what the results will be, so we're just going to have to find out together. All right, so this experiment is actually one that I've been wanting to do for years. What I wanted to do was cut out the shapes, except leaving the bottom of them connected to the paper, so that way I could kind of like fold them up, almost like they were still attached to the paper, but I could fold them up so there's still like some 3D element, and then use a light to cast shadow onto the white paper behind it. That's kind of the idea of the experiment. If you don't get it, you'll get it soon enough. All right, so I've got my cutouts, both the versions. I'm going to use this tiny little light to create the shadows, so that way I can move it around easily. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I don't really know. Maybe I'll have to get a bigger light. We're just going to have to kind of experiment and see what happens. But I am going to have to close all of my windows and stuff. Please excuse if it's a little bit tough to see. Alrighty, so let's see what we can come up with. So it looks like everything's going to be completely blown out on the camera, so you're probably not going to be able to see what I'm looking at. But holding it up really close doesn't really add much definition. But as I bring the light back, you could start to see a little bit more of the letter forms. So I can kind of stretch them out if I bend it low, then if I bring it up, brings them closer. Yeah, it's just kind of hard because right now the very tops of the letters really blur out, which is kind of cool, but it would be nice to be able to get like a really harsh, like for everything. But I guess I had to bring the light out way back here in order to get like sharper letter forms. But that's still pretty cool though. You can kind of control how much blurring goes on, but I want to know what it looks like if I angle it instead of going like straight on. I feel like maybe this could work if I maybe had added more space in between, kind of like factored that in. Kind of gets all gunked up if it's too close, but it's still pretty cool. I like the idea. Really hard to get it at the right angle to where like you're getting the right amount of sharpness compared to softness. Alrighty, so I took a bunch of different pictures, trying to get a bunch of the different variations using this one. From the pictures that I took, I think they look pretty cool. I like the different kind of variation just because the way that the letter forms are bent and folded, they're not exactly perfect and even. So you get some of that kind of warpiness, you know, not that exact nature that you would get from regular type. So I like that. And then in some of the angles, the pictures that I took at like different angles, kind of a mixed bag. I think it looks really cool, but I don't think it quite works as well as I would hope, just in terms of getting it to be sharp enough to really be able to understand what the words are, versus having the very slanted look to it. Maybe there's a way to do it better, or maybe in post it'll look better, but not super happy with how those came out. But you know, again, it's all an experiment, just kind of seeing what works. But overall, I think this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, especially because I didn't really think about how much fun it would be just to kind of have this light and I can place it anywhere that I want. I think that's it for this experiment. There's a couple other ones that I wanted to try before we end this video, so let's get into those. But before we get into the other experiments, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare has creative classes taught by world-class creatives like professional illustrators, renowned graphic designers, and successful entrepreneurs. It is the best place to learn a creative skill or pick up a new hobby. Skillshare is where humans come to learn from other humans. I took Marco Silva's experimental typography class. This class is simple and straightforward. It gives clear and actionable steps for someone looking to get started in experimental typography, especially for those of you who are more familiar with Illustrator compared to Photoshop. Learn some new tricks and tools to create more expressive and visually interesting typography within Illustrator. And there are even more design classes you can take so you can improve and learn even more design skills that can take you to the next level. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. All right, so this experiment is going to be a little bit simpler, more straightforward. I don't remember where I got this idea from, but I like the idea of taking, you know, just a simple letter form like this, like a G on a piece of paper, and then, you know, like folding it somewhere. It's going to have some depth to it. So I'm wondering if after I fold it and I take a picture of it straight down, if the letter forms will look interesting or different. This is one of those experiments where I really just kind of like, who knows? could go really bad, could go really good, but well, we're going to find out. So I've printed out a couple different versions, so I'm just going to bend them and we'll kind of see what happens from there. All right, so I just did one experiment just to see how it turned out. Honestly, so far, I'm not super excited with the results. Maybe if I bend them more, do it in a different way, or once I kind of do some post-production and add some contrast, it might look better. But so far, not really the most exciting thing that I've ever done. But I'm going to do it the same thing with the rest of the letters, and we'll see if there's any other difference. Okay, so for this second iteration, what I wanted to do is instead of playing around with bending it in different ways, I bent them all horizontally, just in different places, but I also made sure that the indentations were a lot more pronounced. So like with this one, it's a little bit flatter. So what I made sure is that they were a little bit more taller, but it also gave me the idea of playing with the light again to see if maybe creating a shadow or lighting on the edges might create something different. So I kind of want to test that out real quick just to kind of see what happens. So I'll throw those on screen, the edited versions, but I don't know, there could be something interesting there. Just from looking at the unedited photos, kind of hard to tell, but maybe there's something there. Okay, so for the last version that I was going to do, instead of bending the paper horizontally, I did it vertically just to see if there's something else that's different or more interesting. I think this might be my least favorite out of the three. I feel like maybe there's something you could do with it, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that the letter forms are or the way that I bent them. But I feel like maybe if you were doing kind of a design that's based around like blinds or like edges, like a staircase, like maybe something like this could work, or there might be something there that you could experiment more with. But like again, that could all change whenever I start editing and I add a little bit more contrast, so that way you don't see all the bends and folds and shadows and stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I think I have one more experiment, so we'll just try that out and then we'll kind of go from there. So this last experiment is maybe less of a typography experiment, more of a layout experiment, because it depends on how you want to look at it. But I thought it would be interesting to take shapes, lay them out on here either randomly or intentionally, and then align digitally align text to the shapes. I know that might sound kind of weird. Maybe you'll kind of understand it once I start getting into it. But I thought this would be an interesting way to come up with a bunch of different layouts and compositions. I'm not thinking too ahead. I'm using this to dictate where I'm putting things and then kind of seeing what comes out of that. So I guess kind of doing it the opposite way. You would take your typography and then compose the composition based on that typography. So I guess we're kind of doing it in the opposite way. So I think the only caveat that I would add is what I want to do is I want to create specific typography and then connect it with a color. So let's say the header, or the biggest type, is always orange, and then the smallest type is always blue. Again, maybe it's a little bit confusing, it doesn't make sense, but hopefully once you see it in action, you'll kind of understand. So I'll come up with a couple different compositions. We'll take some pictures of those, upload those, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So let's get to it. So continuing from where we left off, I took the shapes that we had, I imported them into Photoshop just so I have all the layouts that we're going to do. And then just for an example, just to show you guys what I was talking about earlier, I color-coded the corresponding text. So you can see here, so if I were to use this layout, I might put this, go in here, this thing up here, I'll put it up here, and this I'll put over here. Now I am going to make some adjustments to these, both in color as well as layout. I just wanted to use this kind of experiment as a starting point. So I might turn on the grids and then kind of redo things or kind of realign things. This might be the first layout that I do. And then maybe I'll change the color of this to red. And maybe that's where I start. And then maybe I add some color or photography or something. But I just think it's interesting to design in this way that's a lot more compositional, starting from the composition and then working in the typography afterwards. So yeah, we're just going to kind of go through some of these experiments and kind of just see what happens. Say again, this is an interesting composition because maybe I put a photograph here. That could be interesting. I am going to go ahead and turn on some guides. So like for instance, something that I might do later on, just kind of like move these around just so they kind of sit on the grid a little bit more. But at least the essence of the composition that I had is still the same. Okay, so this should be a pretty interesting layout. How this is going to come together, just because it's such a weird way of putting things, layering and everything. But it could be cool. Could also be really bad. There's only one way to find out. That could work. Let me, before I commit to that, let me see any other like variations that I like. Yeah, I think I like this the most. Because I think I could do something cool with some photography. Like maybe, I'm gonna create a rough shape real quick. Maybe put a photograph in this shape right here. So this one has a lot of overlapping. So this one might be a good one to experiment with different color variations or something in order to be able to stack everything on top of each other, but still be able to read it. So I think for this version, this is going to be the best. It's as good as it's going to get. I think there's something interesting here. I might come back to this one and then do some more editing. This one I'm feeling less excited about. Well, maybe if we move this down, so there's more overlap, maybe that'll fix it. If I do any kind of like coloring, especially if it's with something like this where I might add a photograph, I'd probably put the photograph in and then pull out a color from that photograph. So that way it feels like a lot more cohesive rather than just like this super bright red that stands out a whole lot. Sometimes this is a cool look, but I don't think it's quite what I'm going for right now. So this is going to be another interesting layout because there's nothing here that is aligned to the grid. Which also means we kind of have complete freedom, which could be cool. Sometimes it is nice to break off the grid or just do something that feels a lot more organic. Grids are great. They're really useful, but sometimes they can be a bit straining. What's funny about this one is I like it when we have the colors in. Without it, not really a big fan. So I might actually keep the shapes in this one. Now this was a layout that I was really interested in. Something about it I just thought would come out cool. So let's see if it actually does come out cool or if it'll come out really dumb. I think that's probably the best this is gonna get. So yeah, there we go. Okay. So we've got 7 layouts we can choose from. Like I said, I'm probably going to leave this one the same. I'll do some edits to it. Not a whole lot though. So I think what I might do is like pick 1 or 2 other ones that I like and then see if I can make like an actual poster design out of them. That way we can kind of see what it looks like taking these from an experiment into something that actually looks like an actual design, not just some random experiment. So let me take some time and I'll see what I can come up with. So I took a couple days to come up with some designs. And I actually managed to come up with 4 different designs using 4 different layouts. After I first put together the typography layouts, I wasn't really excited about a lot of them, but there were a few that I thought were at least interesting enough. And after spending some time, I was able to come up with a different variation or edit them or tweak them in a way that I thought was a lot more interesting. And some of them I actually really enjoy how they came out, and I'm happy I was able to make something so cool with them. So if you wanted to, you could use this experiment to getting out of your bubble and trying something different because you're using a different side of your brain, because instead of trying to think with the typography in mind, you're thinking with the general shapes rather than the actual type itself, which can maybe lead to some different results. So if you're kind of feeling stuck, this actually might be a really cool thing to try out. And then on top of that, I also wanted to see what the shadow typography would look like in some kind of context. So I put together a really quick poster design. It's not the best thing that I've ever designed or anything crazy. I just wanted to put something quickly together that would fit with the typography just to see what it could look like given some kind of context. I think the tonality of the piece as well as the typography go really well together. And I feel like if I had another hour or so to just spend working on this, I could come up with something really cool and exciting. But again, this was just a quick edit just to see what could happen if I put this typography into something that might fit the context a bit better. But that's all the typography experiments I want to go through today. So hopefully it sparked some inspiration or maybe gave you some new ideas to do some experiments for yourself. But if you enjoyed this video, I'll leave a link to some more of my other typography experiments so you can check those out as well. Or if you're looking for something that's a little bit more process oriented, you can watch one of these videos over here. Either way, I'd appreciate if you would just check out some of the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, just like the video and subscribe. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next video.